y'all, it's Bradley the Singing Chef. So this is my very first video, and many of you probably don't know anything about my love for cooking. My one passion in life has always been music. Some of you may have seen me singing at Walt Disney World with the Voices of Liberty or with my buddy Crush at Finding Nemo the musical. But my second passion is cooking. And I love to cook for not only myself, but for the people that I love. So I want to add you to that list. I hope you'll follow all of the videos that are to come. Today's very first video I think is going to be fun for both of us. So we're going to be making these buttermilk biscuits. Are you ready? Hey y'all, it's Bradley the Singing Chef. Coming to you today with a pretty easy recipe that my family loves and is near and dear to my heart because I probably make it about every time anybody comes to my house for dinner. It's basically buttermilk biscuits. It's one of my favorite things in the world to make, and I hope you'll make it along with me. So grab your ingredients as we go. First, a couple of pieces of equipment you're going to need. Big mixing bowl, and then some sort of a round pan. Now I have a cast iron biscuit skillet, but it's just as easy to use just a regular like 8 or 9 inch cake pan. That'll work perfectly fine. So I'm going to use that today to help us along. First thing you're going to do is prepare this pan and preheat your oven while you're doing that. Preheat the oven to 500 degrees. That sounds really, really high, like you weren't even sure your oven went that high, but you're going to need that much heat to make your biscuits rise. Then you're going to grab a little bit of Crisco vegetable shortening on a paper towel, and we're just going to grease the pan on the bottom as well as up on the sides, just in case those biscuits rise like they're supposed to, up the sides of the pan. Just toss that away, put your pan to the side, and away we go. All right, first thing you're going to need, self-rising flour. Self-rising flour already has some baking powder in it, which helps your biscuits rise. The leavening agent that's going to make those rise really easily. But I've got a couple of other things I'm going to add to it as well. One for flavor and one for a little extra rise in the biscuit. So take your self-rising flour. I'm going to use about 2 cups or so. Now they say that the best way to measure dry ingredients, and by they I mean everyone I've ever watched on any cooking show ever in my life, is to measure it out without scooping it with the actual measuring cup, so that you get a nice, even, fluffy layer that should actually measure things correctly. Now, I'm doing that to be fancy, but truth be told, I don't always do that. So, 2 cups, just trying to measure it for you folks so that if you want to be fancy, you can do it the right way. Biscuits is not like the most exact science when it comes to baking, which is probably why I like it the most. I'm not a huge baker. I actually love cooking savory food a little bit more than I like cooking sweets. Sweets and baking is a more exact science, but making a simple biscuit is pretty easy. In fact, I usually just eyeball this recipe, but today I'm going to try to give you some measurements so that maybe you can try it at home yourself. Okay, so we put our self-rising flour into the mixing bowl, and then we're going to take a little extra baking powder just to get a little higher rise on our biscuits. I'm going to take maybe about 2 tablespoons or so of extra baking powder. Now I'm going to take a pinch of kosher salt. That's the piece that's for a little bit of extra flavor in the biscuits. Then I'm going to kind of stir all of that together. So just incorporating that salt. Now you can sift it if you're fancy, but I'm not fancy. I am just a southern boy who likes to cook. I grew up watching my parents as well as my grandparents cooking in the kitchen and fell in love with it from there. In fact, this is very similar to the way that my mama in Alabama would make buttermilk biscuits every single morning. There was not a morning that went by that she didn't make a biscuit in her household. And sometimes my grandfather did too, which I love that there was equal opportunity in my grandparents' kitchen. So we've got our dry ingredients into the bowl. Put all that stuff to the side if you'd like. Now, the next step is more Crisco. Crisco is your friend in this recipe. You're gonna take 2 pretty heaping tablespoons of Crisco, and you're gonna create a well in the center of your flour in your bowl and drop that Crisco into the center well that you've created with your dry ingredients. Just plop those 2 scoops in there. Again, like I said, I kind of eyeballed this, so my first scoop was a little shy, so I'm gonna add a little bit more. Now, next wet ingredient is buttermilk. Now, if you don't have buttermilk, that's okay. If you have regular milk in your fridge, all you need to do is take out about the measurement of buttermilk that you're gonna want, which is about, I'd say, 3/4 of a cup or so. Add a little bit of lemon juice to it, and the acid with the lemon juice will help curdle the milk a little bit and create some buttermilk for you if you don't already have it. All right, take your buttermilk. You're gonna put, like I said, about 3/4 of a cup. I'm gonna just eyeball that into the center well again with the Crisco. Now's the fun part. We're gonna get a little bit messy. We're gonna use God's utensil, yes, that's right, your hand, to mix this dough together, all right? Now you're gonna want only one of those utensils, one hand, to get into the wet mixture, okay? Keep the other one as dry as you possibly can, okay? Now, take that hand, put it into the center of the well with the Crisco and the buttermilk and start squishing together with the flour on this side of the bowl. Really get in there, squish it, yeah. It's messy, but trust me, it's worth it. You're gonna get all that Crisco incorporated into the flour that's in your bowl. Should sort of start coming together in the bowl. Keep squishing. There you go. Coming together. Now, with your other hand that doesn't have all the biscuit dough on it, the dry hand that we kept to the side, you're gonna reach into your flour dish and flour the surface of your board or your countertop or whatever you're gonna put these biscuits on when you cut them. All right, I'm also gonna put a little extra pile of that flour over on the side. That's for my cup that I'm gonna cut with, okay? So now that I've got one hand that has some dry flour on it, it's gonna help me get this off my hands, all right? Now, I probably should have said, before you did all of this, we washed our hands. Yes, shake your head like this. We washed your hands, thank you very much. All right, pull all of that off with your forefinger and your thumb of the dry hand. Rub your hand together to scrape a little bit of that off. And now that you've got your dry surface here with your flour on your board, you can dump everything that's in your mixing bowl onto that surface and put your mixing bowl to the side. All right, still keeping our hands kind of messy. We're gonna push all this dough together, all right? We wanna get this into kind of a ball shape, okay? You can knead it a little bit, but it doesn't need a ton, all right? Put it together right there in the center as a ball. All right, get this out of my way because I'm finished with you. All right. On your floured surface with your ball of dough, you're gonna kind of mash this down into sort of a disc, okay? If it gets too sticky, grab a little bit of extra flour, put it on your hands, that'll help it not be completely goo. All right. Now I've got my dough kind of pressed out. I didn't use a rolling pin, that's just one more thing to dirty. I don't need that necessarily. You really just need to make sure that as long as the dough has come together, you should be in pretty good shape. Now, the disc that I'm making here, I'm rolling it, all lies, not rolling it, pressing it into almost the height that I want the biscuit to be at a minimum, okay? So that's about, I would say, an inch and a half high on the board, okay? Now, I'm gonna take just a regular old juice cup of some sort, and I'm gonna drag it through that extra pile of flour that I've got on the side, okay? That's gonna help it not stick as it cuts all the biscuits. Now, we've got our prepared pan here to put the biscuits in. Now I'm gonna start on like one of the outer edges of the disc to cut the biscuits, okay? Press in, cut. That biscuit should come out. It's more difficult when you've got like a closed end on this end of the cup because it's going to create suction. That's okay, you can pull it out of the cup pretty easily. Now you've got your first biscuit. The way that I like to lay these out in the pan is actually start in the center. That way I can go around the center biscuit in the pan with each of the subsequent biscuits. You want those biscuit edges to be touching each other. That's going to actually help them rise in the really hot 500-degree oven. So I'm going to place these biscuits all around in this pan. To be honest, I probably actually have more dough than I need for this size pan, but I think this should probably make around 6 biscuits, 6 or 7 with this recipe. So hopefully that's enough to feed your family. If it's not, just, continue sort of doing the same ratio of ingredients to continue making more biscuits for your family and your friends. We've all got biological family, but we've also got our chosen family. All right, I think that is the last one that this batch is going to do. Now, my mama, which is my dad's mom, she's the first person that I saw making biscuits, and she was a Depression era baby, and waste not, want not was the mantra in her kitchen. I mean, she used everything. So if she had all these scraps of dough left over, she would certainly put them in another ball, press it out again, make an extra biscuit, throw it in your pan if you've got an extra one on the side. Even these tiny little scraps, she would make sure she rolled up into a bowl. These were baby biscuits. For some reason, as a kid, this is the biscuit I wanted first. I don't know. Anyway, so you've got your biscuits in your pan, right? Should look something like this. They're nice and tight against each other. You're going to put this into the 500-degree oven. It's only going to take about 8 to 10 minutes. So if you've got other breakfast cooking, you're going to want to get that going first and do your biscuits last. Let's say your bacon's frying in your pan and you decide, okay, I'm going to make the biscuits, but not everything else is quite ready yet. You can stick this pan of biscuits that are uncooked in the fridge for a while. That won't hurt anything. In fact, it might actually help because the cold hitting the hot oven is going to help you rise anyway. All right, great. I'm going to stick these in the oven. Probably only take about 8 to 10 minutes, and we'll have some fresh, hot biscuits. There's one more step at the end with my favorite ingredient. I'll let you guess what that is. You guys, my kitchen smells insane. These biscuits turned out awesome. Look at that pan of biscuits. Come on now. And my mama told me not to waste anything, so I put the extra dough on an extra pan because, biscuits, why not? The more the merrier, right? Okay, last step. I'm gonna keep this oven mitt on because this pan is still hot, which is a good thing. All right, my favorite ingredient of all time, drum roll please, butter. Yeah, butter, that's the last step. I took a little bit of butter, put it in a dish, melted it in the microwave, pastry brush, and just slather the biscuits with the melted butter. This is adding a little bit of flavor because the Crisco that's in the biscuit doesn't really have any flavor. I mean, you can get the butter flavored Crisco, but it ain't the same as putting real butter on your biscuits. So yeah, put the butter on top of the biscuits, all of them, including the little extra ones and the baby biscuit. Yeah. Once those are good and buttered, you can actually take the pan, because again, we squish these together in the pan, just kind of cut around the edge of those biscuits, pull out, look at that, oh my gosh, it's still steaming hot. Gonna put it over here on a plate and just accidentally get some more butter. Just a wee bit. Won't hurt anybody. Okay, maybe it'll hurt a little. And I also accidentally have some homemade strawberry jam that I made a couple of months ago. It's freezer jams that stay in the freezer. And I'll teach you how to make that maybe another day. But for now, I'm gonna put that on top of my biscuit. And you know I'm gonna eat this, so. One bite, just one. Come on, like melt in your mouth, buttery goodness. Please try making these. I hope you enjoyed our time together today. This is Bradley the Singing Chef saying, butter's your friend.